Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review. And sorry it's been so long since my last video. I've been taking a bit of a break from doing this, but I thought I'd come back this week and review the new Offspring album entitled Let the Bad Times Roll. Now, a bit of history with the Offspring. They were formed a long time ago, back in 1984, and they burst through into the mainstream in the early 90s period when there was this real surge in punk music. Pop punk and punk, and the Offspring sort of came through with bands like Rancid, Green Day, Pennywise, Bad Religion, NoFX, and the doors flung open to the mainstream, and the Offspring marched through with their 1994 album Smash, which to this day remains the biggest selling independent album of all time. It was released on the Epitaph label. And personally, I think the 3-album curve that Offspring did from Ignition, Smash and Ixnay on Hombre is untouchable in terms of the early 90s punk movement. I think those albums are brilliant. On a personal level, the Offspring were one of the first bands that I ever got into, and if it wasn't for them, my taste would have been massively different. I wouldn't be listening to the bands I listen to nowadays. Smash was probably the first album I ever bought with my own money. I distinctly remember buying 4 albums on cassette, and it was Faith No More, King for a Day, Fool for the Lifetime, Therapy, Troublegum, Soundgarden, Super Unknown, and Offspring and Smash. And those 4 albums I still love to this day, and they expanded my musical taste massively. So I look back on Offspring's early days with a lot of nostalgia and rose-tinted glasses. But let's be honest, latter-day Offspring has been patchy. Anything post-Americana, which I still think Americana is a very good album, but anything after that, Conspiracy of One, Splinter, were both patchy. Rise and Fall, Raging Grace I thought was good, and Days Go By I thought was really poor. It was the Offspring trying to do this sort of hard rock Foo Fighters style music, and yeah, that wasn't great. But the thing is, Days Go By was in 2012. That's now 9 years ago, and you wonder what they've been doing for 9 years, because it's not like I looked back at what they had been doing, and there's not like it's been a lot of turmoil. The bassist left, and they got a new bassist, and they changed labels from Columbia to Concord, and really that's it. They've been touring sporadically, releasing sort of the odd single every now and again, but nothing major. So why is it taking this long to release this album? They've released this album with producer Bob Rock, who was one-time Metallica bassist auditionee, Bob Rock, and this will be the 3rd album he's done with the Offspring, the last 3 albums, and he gives it that rock star sheen that the Offspring obviously been going for. So on with this album then. So 9 years in the making, the album Let the Bad Times Roll is finally here, and time has been spent refining and experimenting with their sound. They've been coming up with these generation-defining, elaborate punk rock masterpieces that we find on this album. No, I'm only joking. It sounds like the Offspring being old men trying to be a 90s punk band at times, and God knows what else. This is 9 years this has been taken. I just don't get why. I don't get why it's taken them so long. They're not Tool. These songs are not Tool. These are Offspring punk songs. They are throwaway at best. Anyway, the album opens up actually really well. This is not Utopia. The opening song is the straight up Offspring punk rock opener, and it's pretty decent, actually really decent, and it lulled me into this false sense of this is going to be a really good Offspring album. It then jumps to the 2nd track, which is the title track and the single released, and it's this contrast between the punk rock opening and this bouncy melody that the title track has, which is quite jarring, and the title track is lyrically incredibly dated. It's blatantly an obvious jab at the Trump era presidency, and which would have been fine 5 years ago, but now it just seems pointless and dated, and that's kind of the metaphor for the whole album. In fact, it sounds like it was written across a huge period, which it was. These hand claps and whoa-whoas come in, which feel a bit forced and irritating. I mean, Dexter Holland's never been the greatest vocalist or lyricist on earth, but I liked his voice in that raw punk, early Offspring stuff. It sounded right, it sounded fine, and nowadays he just sounds like a sort of karaoke singer trying to be a rock star. You get a song like Behind Your Walls, the 3rd track, which is the Offspring cliche grown-up rock song. On every album, Offspring have their own cliches. They always have the funny novelty song, the grown-up rock song, the guitar interludes, funny sort of Middle Eastern guitar interlude thing, and they have the backing voice vocalist, which has these vocal interludes. And yeah, this album's no different. In fact, though, the first 6 songs aren't that bad. There's nothing surprising or outstanding on here, but there's nothing awful. And I like the double hit of Army of One and Breaking These Bones. I thought they were decent. It supplies the album with this energy and urgency that the latter day Offspring has been missing for a long time. But then the Offspring album, this album, then falls off a cliff and is completely derailed by, well, there's a huge lack of cohesiveness on this album. And I think that obviously spans from how long it's taken to write the album. Whereas songs like Breaking These Bones sound urgent, and song like it sounds like it's from the Ixnay era stuff. You get the jump then to the marching rock song of Coming For You, which is, again, jarring. The album has this compilation album feel to it, which really is what it is. It just sounds like a compilation album of best of the last 10 years of Offspring. Certainly not the best. The low point of the album then arrives with their cliched Offspring funny novelty song, with a song called We Never Have Sex Anymore. And it sounds as bad as that. And Dexter lamenting an empty marriage. And it's about as awkward as walking in on Dexter having sex, I reckon. It's poor. After that, you get the Offspring standard silly guitar interlude with this 1-minute rock cover of the 1895 classical composition, what's it called, In the Hall of the Mountain King. And pointless. There's no idea why that's there. There's no need for it. Absolutely pointless. Seemingly just forced in there for no reason. Do we need an interlude in a half-an-hour album? No idea. And then I looked at the track listing for the album and I thought, okay, what we got left? And I looked and thought, we've got another 1-minute song right at the end, which is another blatant nothing song. And then you've got a cover of their own song, Gone Away. So they've got 9 new songs on this album. Less than half an hour of new music. Wow, they really are spoiling their fans nowadays. And it's bizarre to think that it took this long to record, because In the Hall of the Mountain King must have taken a 20-minute coffee break to record. So 9 songs in 9 years, pretty much. Jesus, that's not great. You get the 2 new songs on the second half of the album, Opioid Diaries and Hassan Chop, which are sort of 2 decent enough songs. Opioid Diaries is the better one. Hassan Chop is the Offspring trying to be the fiery punk band they once were, but kind of failing a bit and putting that Eastern tinge on their guitar lines that they do sometimes. It's okay. And then you get to the second lowest point of the album, which is the cover of their own song, Gone Away. And what they've successfully done is they've stripped away all the emotion and strength of the original song and replaced it with dull. And that's kind of it. Whose idea it was, thinking that if we remove all the guitars and replace them with piano and strings, that will add emotions. No, it hasn't. It's destroyed the entire track. And Dexter Holland hasn't got that range anymore, so why are you doing it? I finished this album off just thinking, this is real questionable. Like, questioning the choices of this album. Like, whose idea was this, that it took them 9 years to record, and it sounds so disjointed and all over the place? I mean, it sounds throwaway in parts, mediocre at best, and insulting at worst, really. I just thought, they must have looked back and thought, 9 years it's taken us to write and record all these songs. It sounds all over the place. Let's just strip it away, start again, and just write a new album. That would have been a better idea. There's a couple of songs on here which probably go down well live, I think. Apart from that, there's nothing on here, really. Yeah, a strange album. Anyway, that's my opinion on the Offspring's new album, Let the Bad Times Roll. I'm sure other people like it. And let me know on here. And thanks for watching. And I'll be back soon with another review. Thanks very much.